Not every storm comes to destroy you. Some come to shape the man you're meant to become. Being born into a toxic family doesn't make a Sigma male weak. It makes him sharp. It forces him to grow up in an emotional battlefield where trust is fragile, words are often weapons, and love feels like a transaction. But instead of folding under that pressure, something rare happens. He evolves, quietly, internally, and with depth that most people never reach. This kind of environment doesn't offer comfort. It offers lessons, often harsh but unforgettable. A Sigma male learns early that he has to depend on himself, not just physically but emotionally and mentally. He watches people say one thing and do another, so he learns to rely on actions, not words. He grows up with expectations to stay silent, to shrink, to obey, but instead he learns how to set boundaries that don't need explanations. This is where his independence comes from. Not from books or mentors, from fire, from choosing not to become what broke him, from choosing clarity over chaos and peace over performance. If you're a Sigma male who grew up this way, you're not broken. You're refined. You don't need approval to exist. You've already faced the hardest crowd, your own blood. And you didn't just survive. You became someone that pain couldn't control. What shaped you didn't define you, it revealed you, and that is exactly what makes you powerful. Number one, they grow up feeling like foreigners in their own bloodline. There's something incredibly isolating about being the one who sees clearly in a family that survives on denial. Sigma males don't grow up trying to be different. They just are. From a young age, they feel like outsiders at their own dinner tables. The values, the rules, the emotional games, none of it sits right with them. And it's not because they want to fight or stir things up. It's because something in them refuses to play along with the lies everyone else seems so comfortable living. They start to realize the truth before they can even fully explain it. The favoritism, the guilt trips, the silence that says more than words ever could. And while others are busy pleasing or performing, the Sigma male is quietly observing and slowly detaching, not because he's cold, but because he sees the cost of pretending and chooses truth instead. In these families, love often comes with strings. Affection can turn into control, and honesty is treated like betrayal. So when a Sigma male asks real questions or calls out the elephant in the room, he's seen as a threat, not a thinker. He becomes the black sheep, not because he's wrong, but because he refuses to be numb. He doesn't just feel like a stranger, he becomes fluent in emotional languages his family never speaks. Self-awareness, boundaries, truth without performance. And even though it hurts to be alienated by the people who were supposed to know him best, he turns that pain into fuel. He builds his own values from scratch. He chooses who he becomes with full awareness, not inherited dysfunction. That feeling of not belonging isn't a curse, it's the signal. It's life telling him he was never meant to blend in. He was meant to break the cycle. Not for applause, but for peace, for clarity, for freedom. Number two, they learn that survival isn't physical, it's psychological. For Sigma males born into toxic families, survival starts in the mind. It's not about dodging physical harm or loud arguments, it's about staying sane in a space where nothing adds up, where what's said doesn't match what's felt, and where truth is constantly bent to serve someone else's comfort. They figure out early that the real damage isn't always loud. It's quiet. It's subtle. It comes in the form of being ignored, guilted, blamed, or twisted into a version of yourself that doesn't feel real. While other kids might be worrying about chores or grades, Sigma males are trying to make sense of mixed signals. One moment they're praised, the next moment punished for the same behavior. One day they're told to speak up, the next they're punished for doing so. That kind of confusion doesn't just frustrate a Sigma male, it makes him go inward. He begins protecting his thoughts like treasure because he learns fast that once others get inside his head, they'll try to rearrange everything to fit their broken logic. So he builds a private world inside, a world that can't be touched or manipulated, a place where his voice is still clear even if no one outside wants to hear it. He becomes careful with his words, cautious with his trust, but razor sharp in how he sees people. Because when your peace is always under attack, you learn to guard your mind the way others guard their homes. And this is where his strength begins, not in loud defiance, but in quiet resistance, in choosing not to believe the lies about who he is. in holding on to clarity when everyone around him is drowning in distortion. His survival isn't about running away, it's about refusing to let a broken system break his inner compass. And that's why he walks through life with this rare kind of stillness, because his battles were never on the outside. They were deep inside, and he won. Number 3, they learn that some doors should stay closed. One of the hardest lessons a Sigma male learns growing up in a toxic family is this: not every relationship is meant to be repaired, and not every apology is worth waiting for. While the world often pushes the idea of forgiveness and family above all, Sigma males take a different path. They don't force connection just because of shared blood or history. They choose peace over performance, silence over fake smiles, and distance over damage. He learns that reopening old doors just to seem like the bigger person usually leads to the same cycles: gaslighting, guilt, and emotional games. So he doesn't go back, not because he's bitter, but because he finally knows the cost of ignoring his own peace. He's not interested in dragging people into his life who never respected his place in theirs. He understands that nostalgia can be a trap, that just because someone was there when he was younger doesn't mean they deserve a seat in his future. Memory isn't loyalty, and forgiveness doesn't always mean re-entry. Sometimes the most honest thing you can do is accept what someone has already shown you and keep the door shut. This decision isn't made from anger, it's made from clarity, from self-respect, from years of trying only to realize the other side never wanted to meet in the middle. So he stops knocking, stops waiting, and instead builds new rooms where he feels safe, heard, and respected. People might not understand this kind of quiet detachment. They might call it cold or prideful, but for the Sigma male, it's freedom. He knows that keeping some doors closed isn't cruelty, it's survival, it's maturity, and most of all, it's his way of protecting the peace he had to fight so hard to create. He's not looking back, because what's behind him already had its chance. Number 4, they turn generational curses into psychological case studies. Sigma males don't just carry pain, they study it. They don't sit around feeling sorry for themselves or blame everyone forever. They take a hard, unfiltered look at the damage, trace it back to the source, and start asking real questions. Why did my father react that way? Why was my mother always emotionally unavailable? Why did everyone avoid the truth like it was poison? Instead of staying stuck in old wounds, they pull them apart like a puzzle, not to obsess, but to understand. They're not driven by revenge, they're driven by clarity, by the need to make sense of the madness they were born into. While others might deny, excuse, or repeat what they were taught, Sigma males break the cycle by dissecting it piece by piece. They study the roles people play, the silence people keep, and the damage passed down like family heirlooms. Then they make a choice, consciously and completely, to do it differently. This mindset turns their trauma into a kind of data. Pain becomes information, emotional manipulation becomes a case file. Patterns don't repeat, they get interrupted. They start to understand that their family didn't fail by accident. These were learned behaviors, survival tactics passed down from people who never questioned them. But the Sigma male questions everything. He doesn't just refuse to pass the curse along, he builds a whole new blueprint. He becomes the man who raises his voice where others stayed silent. The one who teaches his own future children emotional language, not emotional suppression. The one who says it stops with me and means it. What nearly broke him becomes his research, and that research becomes his transformation. The Sigma male doesn't run from his past. He studies it so deeply, so truthfully, that it has no power left to control him. Number 5, they know the difference between family and relatives. Sigma males grow up learning a hard truth early on. Just because someone shares your DNA doesn't mean they deserve access to your soul. In toxic families, love is often conditional, respect is one-sided, and boundaries are ignored the moment they make someone uncomfortable. So the Sigma male learns to separate titles from truth. He stops confusing blood with loyalty. He doesn't cut people off to make a statement. He distances himself because emotional safety matters more than tradition. While others cling to broken relationships out of guilt or obligation, he steps back and observes. He asks himself, do I feel respected here? Am I seen, heard, or just used? And when the answers keep pointing to pain, he walks away quietly, without drama, and with full awareness of what he's doing. This doesn't make him cold, it makes him honest. He understands that family should feel like a refuge, not a battlefield, and if it doesn't, he builds that refuge elsewhere. His chosen tribe might look different. It may be small, scattered, and non-traditional, but every person in it stands on something real: integrity, accountability, and emotional maturity. He values people who don't manipulate, who don't keep score, who don't use love as leverage. These are the people he calls family. Not because they were handed to him by birth, but because they earned their place through trust. And while some might shame him for stepping away from family, he knows better. He knows the cost of staying in rooms where he has to shrink to keep the peace. So he creates a new kind of peace, one built on truth, not guilt, one where love doesn't hurt. The Sigma male's definition of family is simple: the people who protect your peace, not poison it. Number 6, they understand that love isn't always safe. Sigma males grow up learning that love can have sharp edges. In a toxic family, "I love you" isn't always followed by kindness or care. Sometimes it's followed by guilt. Sometimes it's used to silence you. Sometimes it's just the setup before the emotional blow lands. So they stop treating love like a guarantee. They stop assuming that just because someone claims to love them, their intentions are good. This realization doesn't make them afraid of love. It just makes them more aware. They start to question the way people love. Does it come with freedom or control? Does it allow room for truth, or is it just a cover for manipulation? These aren't just deep thoughts, they're survival instincts. Sigma males learn to trust patterns, not pretty words. They stop confusing care with obedience. Just because someone feeds you, calls you family, or claims to be doing things for your own good, doesn't mean they respect you. Sigma males pay attention to how love behaves, not just how it sounds. They learn to hold their ground even when affection is dangled like a reward. They don't beg for love, and they don't bend to keep it. This makes them extremely protective of their space. They don't open up easily, not because they're distant, but because they've seen what love looks like when it's used as a weapon. They would rather be alone in truth than together in emotional chaos. And when they do love, they love with full awareness. No fantasies, no illusions. They love from a place of strength, not desperation, because they know the difference between real connection and emotional control. And once you've learned that, you don't let anyone play with your peace again. Number 7. They use the fire that tried to burn them to forge steel. Sigma males don't come out of toxic families untouched. They come out transformed. The same fire that was meant to destroy them becomes the exact heat that forges something indestructible inside. They don't let pain define them, but they don't ignore it either. They hold it up to the light, examine every scar, and ask, "What is this trying to teach me?" They don't become victims. They become alchemists. Instead of letting betrayal turn them bitter, they turn it into insight. Instead of letting abandonment break their spirit, they use it to sharpen their independence. Every lie, every mind game, every manipulation, it all becomes material, not for revenge, but for armor, the kind you can't see, but feel the moment they enter a room. That quiet intensity, that calm certainty. It's not confidence born from comfort. It's strength forged in fire. Sigma males don't flex their survival. They wear it subtly, like steel under the skin. They don't talk about everything they went through, but it shows in the way they no longer flinch, no longer beg, and no longer tolerate what they once kept silent about. They become protectors, not just of themselves, but of truth, of boundaries, of peace. They don't need to destroy others to prove they've risen. Their growth is loud in its silence. Their peace is powerful without performance, and that's what makes them untouchable. Not because they've never been hurt, but because they've turned that hurt into clarity, into focus, into purpose. Toxicity tried to bury them, but it only gave them depth. They don't just survive, they evolve. And what comes out the other side is not someone you can shake, manipulate, or mold. It's someone who saw the fire, walked through it, and came out forged, silent, strong, and unbreakable. Number 8, they refuse the role assigned to them. In toxic families, roles are rarely chosen. They're handed out like unspoken contracts. The scapegoat who's always blamed. The golden child who's praised only to stay obedient. The quiet one who's expected to disappear when things get tense. These roles keep the dysfunction running smoothly, and stepping out of them is treated like betrayal. But Sigma males don't play along. Not even a little. They recognize the game early. They see how each label serves someone else's comfort, not their truth. And even as a child, something inside them says, no, that's not who I am. They may not have the words for it yet, but they feel the distortion. And rather than bending to fit a broken system, they quietly start writing their own script, even if no one applauds. This rebellion isn't loud. It's not about dramatic confrontations or long speeches at the dinner table. It's subtle. It's in the way they stop trying to please, the way they question the family's logic, the way they detach from roles that demand silence, submission, or emotional sacrifice. They may be labeled difficult or ungrateful, but they don't care. The cost of pretending is far too high. They're not interested in being who the family needs them to be. They're committed to becoming who they actually are. Even if that means being misunderstood, even if it means walking alone. And here's what's powerful. They don't just reject the role, they expose it. Once they step out of the script, the entire family dynamic begins to crack. That's why the Sigma male is often feared or resented within toxic circles, not because he's cruel, but because he refuses to play a part in the performance. He sees the dysfunction and refuses to keep it alive. His path might be lonely at first, but it's real. And in time, it leads to something far more honest than any role ever could. Number 9, they become self-reliant out of necessity, not philosophy. For Sigma males, self-reliance isn't a lifestyle trend or a quote from a podcast. It's survival. It wasn't taught, it was lived. It wasn't romantic, it was brutal. They didn't choose independence because it sounded noble. They chose it because depending on the wrong people kept breaking them. Every time they reached out, they were either ignored, manipulated, or made to feel like a burden. Eventually, they stopped reaching. They learned that no one was coming, no parent with open arms, no sibling with understanding, no sudden miracle of emotional safety, just silence, just chaos, just expectations to keep quiet and keep functioning. So they stopped looking for rescue and started digging within. They didn't build strength in comfort. They built it in the dark, in the silence after being dismissed, in the aftermath of another betrayal that left them gasping for clarity. This kind of self-reliance runs deep. It's not just about paying bills and standing tall, it's psychological, emotional, soul level. They learn to process their own pain, validate their own experiences, and walk themselves through storms that would have swallowed other people whole. They don't need constant reassurance or approval. They became their own anchor because no one else offered one when they were drowning. And what's different about a Sigma male is that this self-reliance doesn't make him arrogant, it makes him solid, calm, clear. Not because life was easy, but because he survived what others will never even see. He doesn't preach independence, he embodies it. Every step he takes is built on ground he earned through silence, grit, and pain. And while others wonder how he became so untouchable, the truth is simple, he had no other choice. His strength was born in ruins, and he made those ruins sacred. Number 10, they don't just heal, they audit. Healing, for a Sigma male, isn't some soft, glossy journey filled with incense and affirmations. It's more like an audit. A deep, unflinching investigation into what really happened, who caused what, and how those moments shaped him. He's not interested in blanket forgiveness just to keep things tidy. He wants clarity, truth, and most of all, ownership. He doesn't sit in a circle singing about letting go. He sits with the hard facts. He asks the questions most people avoid. Why did they treat me like that? What did I internalize that wasn't mine to carry? Was that really love or just control dressed up as concern? This isn't bitterness, it's emotional honesty. He wants to know what actually happened, not what people pretend happened. Sigma males aren't quick to let things slide. They remember the small moments, the inconsistencies, the looks, the silence, the betrayals that were dressed up as traditions. So when they heal, they don't sweep these things under the rug. They lay it all out. They check for patterns. They track the damage like an investigator tracking fingerprints. Then comes the most important part. They choose. They decide what gets to stay in their inner world and what gets cut off without apology. Just because something is old doesn't mean it deserves to be kept. Just because someone says I've changed doesn't mean he'll take the risk. Healing for him isn't just about moving on. It's about doing a full audit of his emotional life and choosing intentionally, deliberately, who gets access and who doesn't. And once the audit is done, it's final. No second chances, no blurred lines, no maybe they didn't mean it. He's not interested in reopening chapters that nearly destroyed him. He's too busy writing new ones, with cleaner lines, stronger boundaries, and no illusions. Number 11. He knows how to lead without needing to be seen. Growing up in a toxic family teaches you strange lessons. It teaches you that sometimes being noticed means being blamed, that speaking up can get twisted, that too much presence can make you a target. So the Sigma male adapts. He learns the power of staying quiet, not out of fear, but strategy. He watches, he listens, he reads the room before anyone even knows there's something to read. He becomes skilled at leading from the background. Not because he lacks the strength to stand in front, but because he doesn't need the spotlight to feel powerful. He doesn't crave applause or approval. He doesn't need people chanting his name to feel like a leader. His leadership is felt, not announced. His moves are precise. His energy changes the tone of a space without a single word. The toxic family environment sharpened this ability. He saw how those who chased power often misused it. He saw how people tried to dominate with volume and force. So he chose a different path, one of calm, one of clarity, one of quiet strength. When chaos hits, he doesn't panic, he calculates. When others react, he observes. And when he speaks, people listen, not because he demands attention, but because he rarely wastes words. His leadership is built on respect, not performance. He doesn't need to be the loudest in the room to be the one in control. He's the one people look to when things get real, because they know he's not pretending. He's not performing, he's steady, he's sharp, and he's not swayed by ego or noise. He leads the way he lives, with precision, not pride, with strength, not show. And what makes it even more powerful is that no one sees it coming. While others chase attention, he builds quiet authority. And in the end, it's his calm that carries weight, his silence that speaks, his presence that leads. In final words. Sometimes the soil is poisoned, but the tree still grows wild and unshakable. The Sigma male born into a toxic family is not weak, broken, or unlucky. He is forged in the kind of pressure that either crushes or creates, and he chose to become, to rise, to question everything. He didn't inherit peace. He built it brick by brick with his bare hands. He didn't become self-aware from books or advice. He became self-aware because his environment forced him to either wake up or lose himself completely. What makes him powerful isn't that he came from darkness. It's that he refused to stay there. He looked around, saw the lies, the silence, the guilt games, and said, "No, that's not who I am." He didn't need permission to outgrow his past. He gave it to himself. To every Sigma male carrying the weight of a heavy childhood, hear this. Your strength is not in how well you hide your pain. It's in the way you've turned it into clarity, into insight, into the ability to see people for who they really are. You don't owe your loyalty to dysfunction. You don't owe your energy to anyone who only takes. And you are not defined by the wounds. They are only the beginning of your blueprint. You didn't escape. You evolved, quietly, intentionally, and now you walk through life with a depth that can't be faked and a focus that can't be shaken. You're not a product of your family's chaos. You're the one who broke the cycle, and that right there is the significance. Thank you for watching. God bless you.